Comparison of the three active approaches of active models of learning. We studied the structures approach, the process approach, and the schematic approach. Now we are going to see what are the similarities between these approaches and how these approaches relate to each other. All three models recognize that learning is a conceptually driven mental activity. All models describe learning as initially a bottom-up or stimulus-driven mental process. The mental activity is stimulated by what we perceive and how we mentally react to stimuli in our environment. ये 3 पॉइंट्स जो हैं ये तीनों अप्रोचेस इस पे में मिलते हैं हमें। जो पहला ये है कि लर्निंग जो है वो मेंटली ड्रिवन एक्टिविटी है, यानी जब भी कोई आप लर्न करेंगे चीज़, इसमें आपका मेंटल प्रोसेस इन्वॉल्व होगा और ये आपकी एक लर्निंग जो है ये एक कॉग्निटिव स्ट्रक्चर इसमें इन्वॉल्व होता है। दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि जब भी आप लर्निंग की बात करेंगे तो लर्निंग रिक्वायर्स अ स्टिमुलस, और लर्निंग रिक्वायर्स अ काइंड ऑफ एन स्टिमुलस दैट gives you information and that gives you information that relates with your pre-existing information, और जो कि आपके जो स्कीमाज हैं उनके साथ रिलेट करती हो। और थर्ड पॉइंट ये है कि mental activity is stimulated by what we perceive and how we mentally react to stimuli in our environment. ये तीनों मॉडल्स में ये एक एग्रीमेंट है कि भी मेंटल एक्टिविटी जब भी होगी तो इसमें ये बड़ा इम्पॉर्टेंट है देखना कि भी हम क्या परसीव कर रहे हैं और उसके ऊपर कैसे रिएक्ट कर रहे हैं। The structures approach holds that informations move from the sensory register to STM, WM to LTM. In schematic processing, a salient stimuli in the environment cues a schema. And in the process model, involuntary intention may lead to deeper mental processes if the stimuli is relevant to the individual. Comparative analysis. Together, the three models gives a fuller description of how learning occurs. Working memory may be the structure that represents the location for processes in other approaches. Working memory involves retrieving information from long-term memory. For comparison, it may be the location of schematic priming as well as recognition. Working memory may also be the location of elaboration and schematic learning. Reading information for long-term memory may involve elaboration or linking the material to prior knowledge. That linkage may involve selecting the appropriate storage bin for or schema. Variables influence learning. Several audience variables can impact learning via the structure and process approaches. Motivation is a key component of learning. Without motivation, you cannot learn anything. Greater motivation is associated with greater mental activity that leads to greater learning. Another variable associated with motivation is the amount of invested mental effort. The more amount you invested, the greater the learning you get. When people believe a medium is difficult, they invest more effort and tend to learn more.